He who spares the guilty punishes the innocent. Seneca. Let's start with something no one wants to hear. Most people are not kind, they're afraid. Afraid to confront. Afraid to say no. Afraid to stand firm. So they wrap their fear in soft language and call it kindness. They don't set boundaries, they tolerate. They don't speak the truth, they stay polite. They don't correct, they enable. And they do it not because they care, but because they're addicted to comfort. To being liked. To avoiding the discomfort of strength. This is not virtue. This is cowardice in disguise. And the Stoics would have called it exactly what it is, weakness. Seneca wrote, "A good character, when established, is not easily overthrown, he who is brave is gentle and unshaken." Real kindness, to Seneca, wasn't softness. It was strength directed wisely. It was power, mastered, and used with clarity. But most people today are not strong. They are emotionally fragile, mentally foggy, and morally undecided. And so, to cope, they lower the standard of kindness. Make it mean, never say anything difficult. Never challenge anyone. Never risk disapproval. That is not kindness. That is decay. Because if your kindness depends on being liked, it's not kindness. It's manipulation. If your silence allows others to stay weak, or selfish, or cruel, it's not compassion. It's complicity. And if you refuse to say the truth because it might hurt someone's feelings, you're not being empathetic. You're being dishonest. Epictetus understood this. He wrote, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The mind cannot grow in comfort. It needs friction, challenge, tension. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is to disrupt someone's delusion, even if they hate you for it. But let's be honest. Most people aren't willing to do that. Because to confront someone, you must first confront yourself. Your own fear. Your own people-pleasing. Your own addiction to being seen as nice. Kindness is a shield many wear to protect their ego. It's not about the other person. It's about how they want to appear. They want credit for being good. Without ever doing anything difficult. But the Stoic asks, what kind of goodness is that? What kind of man avoids truth to stay comfortable? Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire. He knew the burden of decisions, of moral weight, of leadership. And yet, in his personal notes, he reminded himself constantly to stay honest, even when it was hard. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In silence. In struggle. In restraint. Not through public praise, but private discipline. Real kindness is not loud. It doesn't perform. It doesn't chase approval. It protects what is right. Even when it costs." Here's where this becomes dangerous. We now live in a culture that teaches weakness as virtue. Avoid conflict. Don't offend. Don't question. Just support. Just agree. Just be nice. But what if your silence allows harm to grow? What if your politeness enables decay? What if being nice is why the people around you are still stuck? Still hurting? Still weak? And what if you are too? Seneca believed that virtue had a spine. It didn't waver with mood or social pressure. He said, "He who spares the guilty punishes the innocent." In other words, if your so-called kindness protects bad behavior, you've betrayed the good. If you protect lies, to avoid hurting someone's feelings, you hurt them more in the long run. If you say, "It's okay," when it's not, you've chosen comfort over clarity. That is not strength. That is surrender. But here's the problem. Strength doesn't feel good at first. It's lonely. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to be misunderstood. It requires you to be hated by the very people you're trying to help. That's why so many avoid it. It's easier to be nice than to be honest. It's easier to agree than to correct. It's easier to say nothing than to say something that makes the room go quiet. But what happens when a society avoids the truth for long enough? What happens when everyone is too polite to confront lies? Rot sets in. In people. In families. In nations. And it all starts with a fear of conflict that wears the face of kindness. The Stoics would tell you this. If your words never cost you anything, they're not valuable. If you never face resistance, you're not standing for much. If your kindness never demands discipline, it's just weakness dressed in soft language. Let others be soft if they want to. Let them worship comfort. Let them flinch at confrontation. You are being trained for something harder. To speak when it's easier to stay silent. To hold your values when it would gain you more to abandon them. To walk alone, and still walk with dignity. And that's the challenge for this video. Are you actually kind? Or are you just afraid? Are you building strength that can carry others? Or just wearing masks to keep the peace? Write your answer. Let it be uncomfortable. Let it be honest. That's where strength begins. The discipline of real strength. Real strength is not what you think it is. It's not cold. It's not angry. It's not loud. It's the man who says no calmly. It's the woman who sets a boundary without apology. It's the voice that speaks the truth and walks away. Even if it costs them everything. We confuse strength with cruelty. Because we've forgotten that love can be firm. That care can come with sharp edges. That real compassion does not avoid pain. It walks people through it. Epictetus once said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." He didn't say, tolerate everyone. He didn't say, lower your standards to avoid conflict. He said, surround yourself with those who make you stronger. And that requires judgment. Not judgment as arrogance. Judgment as discernment. To know when someone's presence weakens your soul. To see through the smile, the excuses, the victimhood. And to have the discipline to step back. But most people won't. Because stepping back feels mean. Because saying no feels unkind. Because boundaries feel harsh. But what if your inability to say no is the reason you're exhausted? What if your fear of confrontation is the very thing destroying your relationships? What if your so-called kindness is actually betrayal of yourself? Stoics weren't interested in being liked. They were interested in being honest, first with themselves, then with others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word, or lose your self-respect." So ask yourself. Does your version of kindness break your word? Does it make you smaller just to make others comfortable? If the answer is yes, it's not kindness. It's weakness dressed in manners. Real kindness begins with truth. And truth, by nature, is uncomfortable. But that discomfort is not violence, it's medicine. And like any medicine, it's only painful if you're sick. You see, the world isn't starved for compliments. It's starved for clarity. For men and women who say, "I will not pretend to agree, just so you'll like me. I will not sacrifice my values, just so you'll feel safe. I will not let your weakness infect my integrity." That's not cruelty. That's care with a spine. That's love that knows what it stands for. Seneca said, "True happiness is, to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But can you enjoy the present? When you're constantly managing everyone's emotions? When you're addicted to being the nice one? When you're walking on eggshells just to avoid judgment? That is not peace. That is slavery to perception. And it is costing you your strength. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's permission. It's spiritual self-sabotage. You weren't made to be agreeable. You were made to be whole. And sometimes wholeness means someone else won't like you. Sometimes it means silence when others expect your support. Sometimes it means walking away. Not out of hate, but out of clarity. Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. Some people are not meant to be saved. Not by you. Not with your words. Not with your help. They don't need your softness. They need to fall. To feel. To face themselves. And your job is not to catch them. Your job is to live by example. To walk with quiet strength. To stand with integrity so clear it leaves a mark. You don't lead people by coddling them. You lead by embodying what they are too afraid to become. That's what real kindness looks like. The father who disciplines his son with steady hands, not rage. The friend who says, "You're lying to yourself, and I won't lie with you." The leader who does what's right, even when it's hated. This is the kindness the Stoics lived by. Rooted in clarity. Sharpened by truth. Backed by action. It does not always feel good. But it always does good, long term. So ask yourself again. Are you kind? Or just afraid to be strong? Do you love people? Or do you fear their judgment? Do you speak truth? Or do you perform peace? This is not an attack. It's an invitation. Because you are not meant to be addicted to weakness. You are meant to be dangerous, and controlled. Powerful, and still. Honest, and compassionate. But never spineless. Never silenced. Never false. So here's your challenge. Practice hard kindness. Say what must be said. Do what must be done. Hold the line, even when you stand alone. Because someone has to. And if not you, then who? Speaking head, now your turn, answer this in the comments. Have you confused weakness for kindness in your own life? And what are you going to do differently starting now?